Talk of the Town is up and running in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. Another edition of Talk of the Town is upon us. We have an Eau Claire City Council week. We will dive into some more on Thursday with the Eau Claire City Council, though we do have one thing that's come to light here in the last 24 hours that we will talk about, but namely the Eau Claire's Music Festival. We will touch on that, I think, more on Thursday, as it is expected that the Eau Claire's Music Festival will get approved on Tuesday. There's a lot of support for it from various parties that are involved, and there will be a question. We'll talk about it on Thursday, and I am for this. I am for this festival being done at Carson Park and what have you, and it looks like they're going to use all of the space at Carson Park, but why approve this, yet you had problems with July 4th being at Carson Park? So that I'm intrigued to see what type of discussion there's going to be on Tuesday. Is there any pushback at all before we talk about it on Thursday? It's something that should be approved. Let's utilize it and all that, but why? Why would you be, if there is no pushback at all, no discussion, why are you all okay with the Eau Claire's Music Festival, but you could not wait to run the 4th of July out of Carson Park? And before we, again, get too deep into it, people will start spouting off, well, Justin Vernon runs this town. Justin Vernon does not run this town. All right, Zach Homestead and that whole group, I don't think has as much power as people think they do, though they very much can make things happen. I would like to think if they approve this without any type of hiccups or anything, it's because they have understood the error of their ways. But we will see about that. We are going to talk about trash, though, in a moment in the city of Eau Claire. Speaking of trash, well, controversy, if you will, I know a lot of you that tune into this program are not necessarily big sports fans, but many of you are. Quick reminder, Tuesday night, Regis against Fall Creek on 93.5 and right here at ECHometownRadio.com. Clover Bell Conference first place is on the line, so that's a 6 o'clock start. Earlier, I get back earlier. In fact, my son, by the way, Derek, he's going to be calling the Memorial North game over on Old Abe TV on YouTube. So Memorial North in hockey, boys hockey, you've got that going on tonight later on. You've got my game, Regis and Fall Creek. So here's your Tuesday night plans. Regis, Fall Creek, here at ECHometownRadio.com and 93.5. And then after, pop on the old YouTube and you watch Memorial North boys hockey with Derek Montesano. There you go. There's your Tuesday night plans, and in the background you can have the Olympics on as well. But speaking of sports, if you haven't already, go back and tune into our Sports Watch show from Monday night because it is eliciting a lot of conversation. And don't be fooled when you look at our Facebook page and you don't always see a lot of Facebook comments on things. And it's not because we go through and delete or we ban people or anything like that. It's because what our site is and what podcasts are, and this is a good thing, is that I want people to hear what's being discussed in the various shows and to digest it internally and then maybe talk to other people around them. It's the old notion of when you were a kid and you'd see people doing something on TV and you would kind of emulate it, if you will. You watch Saturday afternoon baseball and then would go out and play wiffle ball. You saw somebody singing on stage and you yourself would go do it. And kind of the same thing here. We want people thinking and then talking amongst yourselves, amongst family members, amongst friends. You don't just go onto the Facebook page and spout off right there. So do not misinterpret when you don't see stuff on our social media pages all the time about what's eliciting a lot of contact, a lot of engagement. So our show on Monday night has elicited a lot of engagement because it, and again, you have to go back and listen to that show, but it's got all the elements there. It's got a well-known local prominent person who has made a claim, and Scott Montesano has shot back at it. All right? It's got all the pieces together, and in the last 24 hours, I have heard from numerous local school administrators who are very much like, yeah, you go tell them, Scott, to this. I've heard from the individual that got kind of called out. I've heard from other local sports officials who called me a carpetbagger. We are having a lot of fun with this. So go back, listen to the show from Monday night, our Sports Watch program discussing a recent local viral post and local sports officials. So discuss that. Altoona. Before we go into Eau Claire stuff, Altoona is almost ready to put the new zoning codes to vote for the city council. It's been a 2.5-year experience, process as they redo the zoning codes that had been long due for the city of Altoona to do so. And this is all part of the forward thinking and looking ahead that the city of Altoona is well known for. We just had Brains and Beers recorded. And by the way, brand new Brains and Beers dropping today. So check that out at echomestownradio.com. And one of the participants is Roy Atkinson from the city of Altoona. And he talks a little bit on the Brains and Beers podcast, which, of course, is him competing with Chase from Valley Sports Academy in local trivia. So you have to find out who wins that. Listen back yourself as to who wins that, Chase versus Roy. But Roy touches a little bit on the podcast, and then we also talked off microphone as well, that Altoona, no big surprise here, the next area that they are really going to focus on in terms of development from a commercial standpoint is going to be the city center area. So right around where the container park is, and the container park has apparently gotten great reviews. It has been doing very well, and I think they're very excited about this upcoming spring and summer because obviously the foot traffic decreases significantly in the winter, but they're very excited about the upcoming spring and summer, and that serving as kind of the catalyst to the overall city center. They're looking at developing the city center more, working with the existing partners who've been down there, like the Golden Spike and, of course, Rumps and other places, and again, really developing the center of Altoona. And we've said it on this program before, I'll say it again, until they're proven wrong. At this point, anything that the people in the city of Altoona do in that leadership role, you've got to, your default is to assume they're going to be correct. There's other municipalities, there's other entities, there's other businesses, there's other sports teams that the default is always to assume that they've made the wrong choice. With Altoona, they earned a long runway thanks to what they did with River Prairie. Until they prove otherwise, you have to assume they're going to make the right call on things. So we'll keep an eye on that. There's a couple of local elections we keep an eye on. One, of course, is the city council presidency race in Eau Claire. All right. We've got that race coming up in early April. So we look forward to that, of course. Another race we're keeping an eye on is the Menominee mayor race. and they'll have the primary next week. There's 3 competing, 2 will move on. The incumbent is running, as well as 2 challengers. So we'll keep an eye on that. Randy Knack is the incumbent, longtime mayor Menominee. He's up against 2 challengers. One of those challengers was on our recent Coffee at the Cottage. You can go back and listen to that. So 2 of the 3 will move on. One would think Randy will move on, and we'll see which of the challengers also joins him in the April election. So keep an eye on that. Speaking of that, I think, so get ready for that on next week. But another local race, and this is one that will take place in the fall, we might have a little bit of a challenge here. So Clint Moses has been the representative of the 92nd Assembly in the state of Wisconsin. So that takes care of the Elk Mound area into Menominee. And we learned earlier this week, that Jeremiah Fredrickson out of Elk Mound is going to run against him. Moses is a Republican. Fredrickson's going to run as a Democrat. Fredrickson's main thing, though, is he's going to, he put out the same kind of, this isn't a negative thing, but it was almost like he went to ChatGPT to write the press release. And there's, again, nothing wrong with it. It's the same boilerplate thing that you would expect to be sent out there. But basically saying he's going to run on the issue of bipartisanship, and let's extend the arm out to the other side. And he's running to, because life is very hard for rural families, and making sure everybody's got opportunities. And again, the same boilerplate stuff that you would expect to have. That's not necessarily a bad thing. We've said it before. Even if somebody doesn't have, really significantly wild, different ideas from the person that's currently in the position, it doesn't mean that we don't want to have other options. Think of it like a place. Think of it like going to a restaurant. You don't just want, they serve a burger. You want various options of the burger. It's still a burger, but you want various options. Now, sometimes you want some really thing on the extreme, I guess. But if you go to a restaurant for a burger, you just want a few options of said burger. Same kind of thing when you're looking at running in politics. But I will throw this one thing out there on it. And this is not an endorsement of Clint Moses, but him telling this story a few years ago has always stuck with me. So Jeremiah brought up, hey, we've got to stop, we need to stop the partisan politics, and we need to be able to work together and be bipartisan, which, by the way, a lot of the stuff that comes out of the state has been bipartisan. We talked about it 2-3 weeks ago, how there was the anti-grooming bill that was 97 out of 100 in the state voted for it. Bipartisan. Only 3 wackadoodles voted against it, including the Democrat out of Eau Claire, Christian Phelps. But Clint Moses told this story when it comes to trying to be bipartisan. And we were at a Coffee at the Cottage, and he was a great guest on Coffee at the Cottage with Emily a few years ago. And we're talking after the podcast and all that, and I love when we have politicians on our shows. Love it. Not necessarily just for what they might talk about on the program, but the conversation after is so enlightening. And actually, the conversations we have with politicians when the microphones aren't on really would embolden you and warm your heart. I can't stress that enough. It really would, make you feel good about those that are running government. Problem is, when the microphone comes on, they have to sometimes act a certain way. Now, Clint's not one of these extreme people on the right, but told a story that he was down in Madison, and he's walking into the State House. And he's like, and I've heard this from other politicians too, they try to be friendly with everybody. They know people that are on the other side of the aisle and what have you. And he's walking into the State House, and he ends up walking side by side with a person he knows who was a Democrat or is a Democrat. And he's walking in side by side, and they're laughing, and they're having a good conversation about something that's not government related. These people are humans too. They're talking about the Packer game. They're talking about the Badgers. They're talking about something that's on TV. They're talking about the weather, whatever. Asking about the wife and kids, whatever. They're walking in, and as Clint gets to the front of the State House, he's pulled aside. This is when he was fairly new there. And he gets pulled aside by a high-ranking Republican who gets in his face, puts a finger to his chest practically, and says, "We're never to be seen cavorting with the other side." It's a bad look. It's a bad look. And that's what a lot of politicians are up against. And that's what a lot of junior representatives are up against. When you first go there, that's what you're going to be up against. So Jeremiah, this is not a knock on Jeremiah. It's the same boilerplate that's put out by everybody. But understand, when people say we need to have a call for bipartisanship, yes, look at your current person and what are they doing, but also look at it as a whole. What might be stopping them from being bipartisan? What might be stopping them? All right. So something that's been coming up in Eau Claire for a while, and I know, by the way, we put it in the show notes, and we're going to get to it, the whole fiasco with Burger King in a little bit. We've talked about it now for about 2 years. It's amazing. It's actually been about a 2 to 3 year process. The whole thing about trash collection in Eau Claire, and the eye-opening study that came out maybe a little more than a year ago, that residents in Eau Claire pay exorbitant pricing for the collection of trash when compared to other cities in the state of Wisconsin. We pay an awful lot for having our refuge taken away. And the city of Eau Claire has been working to try to figure out other ideas, if you will. Now, it's one of those things that I had kind of forgotten about, and when you start thinking about it, we should have figured it out by now, to be honest with you. But there's been movement, and it looks like we're within a year of having some movement in a direction. At least according to Dave Solberg, the assistant city manager, who, of course, has always been the de facto city manager when you think about it. The city of Eau Claire, mind you, has had for years what you would think to be on paper the best setup. It is a capitalistic society. It's a competition. People come in, various services, and like anything else in business, you would think competition options would breed innovation, lead to better service, lead to better pricing, because there's all this competition. It has not worked out that way. Not necessarily even out of consolidation. You still have options in the area, but the pricing has never gone down. You have minimal connection now between the garbage haulers and the local community. Really, ever since Box Sanitation left, you don't see the trash collectors really engaged in the community other than employing people, which is significant, of course. The quality of service, I haven't experienced anything. You set it out there and you forget about it. But if anything, you've heard complaints about the quality of service. It has not been what you would think on paper. And the city of Eau Claire has openly been thinking about, hey, should we be thinking about what other communities do? And that is either a single hauler, all right, a single hauler, or the city itself takes care of trash collection. And it looks like this spring, the city is going to look to hire a consultant to really put together the costs for what it would look like for the city of Eau Claire to operate its own trash collection. And by the fall, have a plan in front of the city council to vote and hopefully to have in place in the 2027 budget. So in a year or two, we might have our own city of Eau Claire garbage collection service. And if it leads to better pricing, nobody should complain about that. We are paying exorbitant fees in the city of Eau Claire, and we're not really getting much for it. Waste management's a big group in this area. Waste Management used to be a big community partner in a lot of towns they were in. Waste Management's nowhere. They have no impact in this community other than employing people. A couple of local businesses are there, but they don't really have a big impact. So we're not getting anything out of this right now. And I remember way back, the very first partner podcast we ever had. It's a great bit of history with us with Eau Claire Hometown Media. Was Josh Box with Box Sanitation, the Talking Trash podcast. It was number 1. 2 weeks later, Banker with a Beard joined us, and Josh Box did a podcast with us for 6 months, and then it was kind of the Dan Marcon podcast originally too. So that was sort of what he was. It was in your face discussion and all of that, but Box Sanitation was on all the Little League signs. They were sponsors everywhere of what they could be. They were very engaged in the community. And I remember Josh telling me, because at the time, Chippewa Falls was thinking of things like this and what have you, and he said, the reason why the capitalistic model doesn't work in trash collection is that there's just not enough volume to make it worthwhile. So unless a collector could really get the whole city, it's hard for them to provide lower pricing. It doesn't, the economic model does not work out in trash collection to have competition. It doesn't. The competition is whoever can get into the market to begin with, and that's it. Once, if you have multiple haulers in a town, it becomes very difficult in order to make your nut, if you will. And I always remember that. And I think you're getting closer to seeing the city of Eau Claire do it itself. So we'll keep an eye on that. The other thing is, this broke late last week. It was kind of the Friday news dump. And even in today's media cycle, the Friday's news dump is still as relevant as always. So kind of odd that the state of Wisconsin put this out on last Friday. But it gained traction, and it's carried over to this week. And that story being from the Wisconsin Department of Economics, Burger King and Cave Enterprises. Cave Enterprises is a big franchisee of Burger King. It has locations in Illinois, and it has locations in Wisconsin, both in the Milwaukee area, I think the Madison area, and up here in Eau Claire. All right, so BK has Cave Enterprises. And I think there used to be a local franchisee, but I think Cave Enterprises came in and bought them out. You can go online and find the specific ones that Cave Enterprises in Eau Claire manage, but they pretty much manage all of them. Not all of them. There's a couple that they don't manage, but they manage pretty much all of them in Eau Claire. Well, Cave Enterprises is accused of some 1,600 child labor violations. Now, this isn't a sweatshop, all right? The accusations are that they had the child labor, the kids that are 14, 15 years of age, I think 16 too, all right? So they're, actually anybody under the age of 18, right? They had these workers that are legal to work, but remember, you have strict codes as to the hours they can work and when they need breaks and when they can start work, when they have to be off work, why. And the accusations are that those hours were violated. They had kids working during times that they should have been in school. They had kids working beyond the hours that there's an official set curfew. They had kids working more hours than they are allotted at their age. What is concerning and infuriating when you look at something like this, because something like this can sometimes pop up somewhere, is this is a large company, Cave Enterprises. Forget about Burger King. Cave Enterprises, as I said, has got dozens of locations across the state. They've got their own central headquarters and all of that. This is clearly a company-wide issue. It doesn't look like, before we do rush the judgment, though, because you're not getting 1,600 child labor violations out of one shop. This clearly wasn't one store manager going rogue or didn't know the rules or was incompetent. What isn't quite clear is where the violations took place. If these all took place down in Milwaukee, for instance, I think that's important. Did they all take place up in Eau Claire? I don't think that's the case, because you would have heard rumblings by now, all right, people saying don't have your kids work at Burger King or anything like that. So that's what remains to be seen. What's also kind of interesting is how would this, what was kind of the breakdown as to where it occurred. But as I said, when you have 1,600 child labor violations, this isn't just one manager making a mistake, and this is a company-wide issue, where it should impact you and I here in Eau Claire is this. If you like Burger King, all right, you need your Whopper, you like the croissant sandwich, you can go and still get it, okay? And boy, if you really want to go out of your way, you want to find the one or two that are not operated by Cave Enterprises and go there for it, probably even better. So you don't really want to just let it be swept under the rug and they still get your $5 for your Whopper, but so be it. What really should impact, though, is if you have a son or daughter that is of the age where they're starting to work, there's plenty of options in the area for your kid to get those first couple of tastes of work and make money. I wouldn't put Burger King on that list right now. Unless you know, why? There's no you have plenty of other places. They could explain it away. It could turn out that none of the local places are a problem. People could say it's great to work at Burger King in Eau Claire. All that fine, but as I said, there's plenty of options. You hear nothing bad about Culver's, for instance. There's plenty of spots. Culver's is actually the spot where I'm hoping our son will one day work. You hear nothing but positive things about Culver's. And think about it, you yourself, when you go eat at a Culver's, it's usually some 16-year-old kid that's serving you. And you never notice it. Kids mature very quickly. You go to some of these other fast food places and it's a 15, 16-year-old, the service quality is crap. The adults are crap, Adam. I'm sorry, I'm going to upset somebody, but they're miserable. And then that's where the 14, 15, 16-year-old's learning from. So if the 22-year-old is acting miserable, well, the 16-year-old's going to act miserable. And they think that that's normal. See how much I tick off people now. But forget about the sweatshop violations here. Well, not sweatshop violations. As I said, it was hours and whatnot. Forget about those that are accused of Cave Enterprises. Just think of it this way. When you see something like this, is it worth it? What do I always say, everybody? Repeat it with me like it's a game show. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. I don't get money from Culver's, but I recommend Culver's. And I'm sure if I did more research, there'd be dozens of other local businesses that would be great for your son or daughter to get their toes wet in working and making some money and getting not only some cash in their pocket, but also learning, maybe more importantly than the cash in their pocket, are some of those hard but also soft skills that will allow them then opportunities to make more money as they get out of school and are then eligible for better paying positions. All right, we're back with you on Thursday. We should be able to follow up on the Eau Claire's Music Festival. I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Again, there's been a lot of support for it. The only thing is, and again, I'm all for it. I am all for it. All I'm waiting on is to see, is there any pushback? And the issues that kept the 4th of July from being at Carson Park, why do they think that this is? I'm just interested to see. I'm just interested to see. And for all you and I know, there's going to be a lot more discussion on Tuesday than is to be expected. But we shall find out. Big thanks to everybody who made this podcast possible. In fact, on behalf of everyone who made this broadcast possible, I'm Scott Montesano saying there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until Thursday, so long, everybody.